Welcome to the Speak the Language podcast presented by Onyx Hunt. It is good to be back. I know it's been a while. We took a break for the summer, but now hunting season is here, and we're back, and you can expect some more consistency with these episodes. For this first episode, we recently got back from an archery elk hunt in northern New Mexico, and I'm talking to a guy by the name of Garrett Grey. Garrett is a salt-of-the-earth guy. He's been the product manager at Primos for several years now, and Garrett got the opportunity to go after a bull elk for the first time with his bow. So, incredible story. I'm not going to waste really any time. We're just going to go right into it. But one thing before I do that, I need to tell you that capturing and predicting whitetail movements just got a lot easier thanks to Bushnell and Onyx Hunt. Simply add your Bushnell cell cams to your Onyx Hunt account, and just like that, you have all your images, all your information, and your location located in one single app. That's right, Bushnell cell cams are integrating with the Onyx Hunt app. So if you're running Bushnell cell cams this season, if you have an Onyx Hunt account, managing your trail cameras just got a whole lot easier. This is going to be a game changer, so be sure to check that out. Also, right now at Primos.com, there's an exclusive offer on tall monopod trigger stick combos. If you've never gotten the opportunity to use a tall monopod trigger stick, if you're trying to shoot out of a tree stand, it is incredible. So you can save $20 when you purchase a tall monopod trigger stick with the tree stand attachment. So check that out along with all the other deals at Primos.com. I'm going to quit rambling. Let's get to the show. Last time you were here, we were talking about a similar subject that we're going to be talking about today.
Oh, yeah.
Today is October the 4th. We are just past the month of September. September means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For the Primos team, a lot of folks that live out west, a lot of folks that travel out west, when they think September, they think of bugling elk.
September means something a lot different to me nowadays. I'll tell you that. What an amazing month.
So last year, let's do a quick recap, just in case some folks listen to this that hadn't listened to the first one. Last year we went elk hunting in New Mexico, the entire Primos team, as we've done and Primos has done forever. Last year was your first exposure ever to elk hunting, correct?
Ever. Yep. I mean, got invited from you guys and the team, and been with Primos a while and haven't done it, and haven't had the opportunity, and you guys invited me out there, and I think you said in our first planning meeting was, hey, when you get out there, just watch.
Yeah.
Especially the first couple hunts, just watch and learn, and I thought that was eye-opening.
Soak it in. Yeah.
Just soak it in.
Now, last year you did not have a tag. You were tagging along, just soaking in the experience, calling some, just a little bit of everything. And I remember this is a key point to where we're going with this current story. Is you showed up with Jacob Thomason, who hunted last year, who did have a tag, and y'all didn't show up the same time as we did. We'd already been hunting 6 or 7 days or something.
Oh,
like that.
Yeah, you guys been there for a while.
And so when y'all got there, the elk had already, what I refer to as, broke loose.
Oh yeah,
it was full bore. It was peak rut. It was they were doing it.
Yep.
And I remember that because like the first. Y'all showed up, gotten ready, and the first hunt that y'all went out on with Jacob hunting, it was just absolutely bananas.
It was ridiculous. If I remember that hunt, it was in that prairie, and they're kind of starting to come out, and we got on 3 bulls that afternoon. I mean, and they were just angry and
so
yelling and everything.
A little bit of a, I guess, an explanation there. If y'all, so the way we typically hunt these elk, they don't do the same thing everywhere, but we're hunting this stretch of mountains, and in the mornings we typically can catch them. They're out in the prairie throughout the night, and we get up in the mountains. They're coming back into the mountains to bed up or whatever. However, in the afternoons we kind of get on the edge of the mountains or on the edge of the prairie, and they're typically coming out to chase cows around, feed, whatever, what have you. So, to Garrett's point, it was an afternoon hunt, and we were trying to catch these elk coming, basically pouring out of this drainage, and it was a larger herd of them, and we got into 3 different bulls. And I remember I was sitting there, I was filming Jacob, but I was like, man, which Jacob had elk hunted before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you had not. And I was like, I bet Garrett is losing his mind right now.
It was unreal. So the first instruction I got is Brad likes to, watch the hunter and Slade's always back, trying to bring that elk in. So they were like, make sure you can see both of us. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And thank the Lord they did, because it got squirrely there. I mean, they were signaling. We were running all over the place, and it was intense.
They've got that down to a science pretty near.
They really do. They joke and have a great time on the mountain, which is awesome. But, man, once they hear that bugle, it's like stone cold.
So the way that we normally, again, just kind of setting some groundwork up here, the way that we normally set up, if we have, let's just say Jacob was hunting and I'm filming him, and so we have Jacob hunting and then we have callers. So back behind me, probably 40 to 50 yards would be Brad. Brad stays close enough where he can see us and potentially see the bull, which to some people hearing this, they'd be like, that's a little bit too close. You are correct. That is why behind Brad, even further, we have Slade, and in this case, you.
Yeah.
Drop back even further. And what Brad's doing is he's kind of a middleman between the hunters, the elk, and then the callers back, and he would turn around and he would signal to you and Slade, go left, go right, go further back. And it's a production.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's a lot going on.
I don't know if that's the perfect way to put it. I mean, he's just directing traffic essentially, right? Yeah. And those bulls, they're wild animals, so they might stop for a while. They might rake a tree. Next thing you know, they're on a different path, and that hunter and you are set. Yeah. So then it's up to us. Yeah. So, you got to go down, you got to go up, you got to go back further. Yeah. I mean, there's times where I'm in a spot, which we'll get to, happened this year. I was in a spot, and he just told me, stop. Yeah. Because we had another Slade needed to call, and I just need to quiet down. It's all about directing that traffic.
Yeah. It really is it's a lot to especially figure out and take in the first time doing it. But I felt, because I mean, y'all got to hunt for what, 3-4 days, something like that?
I think he killed on the third morning last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got some time in.
Oh,
and then you got to. But anyhow, I left there thinking, and then obviously you and I talked about it on here, that you had gotten a pretty good initiation, so to speak, into the world of elk. And so, tell me this, because some of this I am in the dark about. When did you find out that you were going to get a tag this year?
Couple months prior.
Okay.
They brought me in and was like, hey, you're going to go hunt. And I was like, well, awesome, man. I get to go call.
Yeah.
That's what they say. You're going on the trip. You're going to camp. And I was like, that's awesome. I love calling. I'm so jacked up. And they're like, no, we got to get you set up, with the new Phase 4 Matthews. And I was like, you're kidding me.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it now. And they're like, no, you're first up.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm flabbergasted now talking about it. I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord. Here we go. Let's go.
What was your how soon did you start practicing?
Immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a bow, so I was shooting, and I was fortunate enough. My family and I went antelope hunting earlier this year for a personal trip. So, and just being in this company, everyone shoots whenever we can. We all have our bows here, and we're shooting, practicing. But immediately once I got that bow, we got that thing set up and running, and we were out there. We were go time.
Yeah. So I remember like the first year that they told me I was going to get an archery tag, I practiced. I remember Brad was like, "Lake, you're going to need new strings if you don't quit shooting so much." Like I was just, because I was like, man, I got to be ready,
Yeah.
So okay, you get your tag, you get your bow, you practiced, you're ready. So we ride out there. This time we all traveled out there together. You got there the same time all of us did.
Yep.
What were the nerves like looking back on it now? What were the first morning like? Not you talking to us face forward. Like what was going on inside your head?
Inside my head?
Because I can take from my point of view. I told Brad, I was like, Garrett seems calm. He seems good. He seems confident. I wasn't worried.
Yeah. inside my head, one of the first thoughts, and I remember this, is like, man, did I look at enough elk vital pictures to make sure I know where to put this arrow? Because, I mean, ever since I found out, I was just studying the anatomy and I knew where it was, and everyone says how much bigger it is, and, we want to shoot broadside, double long, but still, I mean, first nerves, obviously on video, going with the guys that I have seen the year before. I mean, you guys are assassins out there. Your execution is phenomenal. You don't want to be that guy to screw it up. So I just wanted to make sure I was prepared going into it as best as I could be. So the nerves that morning of, even though I felt very prepared, I was still nervous.
They're still nervous.
I mean, the night before we were talking, and I was like, hey, coach me, tell me if I'm in the wrong spot. Tell me if I'm, doing something wrong, or, I'm definitely open to that. And, we had that communication, and you were like, I got you. We'll get you set up right, and all that. So I felt a little bit better after having that conversation the night before.
Yeah.
All that said, bow in my hand, getting in the passenger seat next to Brad. Here we go.
There's nerves, yeah.
Here we go.
It's like I told you, dude, I remember you say, because there was something after the fact, or somebody said it. They said something about, they said, I'm ready to be, this is not going to be a direct quote. I can't even remember who said it, but it was something along the lines of, I'm ready to have killed as many elk as Brad has, so I don't have to be nervous anymore. I don't have to feel the pressure. And I was like, that never goes away.
That never does.
I'm just telling you. I was like, you may figure out how to manage it better. It may seem minimized, but I think like the day where there's zero pressure or zero nerves, I don't think that happens.
I can't see a day where it ever would. I mean, even when it comes to whitetail with me, I mean, a doe comes in and I know I'm going to shoot. I got the little shakes, not as much, but I mean, you get an elk. Man, it's just a different story.
It's like, I mean, for example, out of that trip, Brad has probably shot more elk than anyone there.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And like I said, this was it was wild to think about, but this was my 10th elk season with Primos. And then by default, that was also my 10th elk season hunting with Brad. I've been able to film Brad elk hunting a lot.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, on this very trip, when it was turned to hunting, he made a reference to the pressure. Like he's like, man, I like just calling. When I'm calling, I don't have to worry about anything.
It shocked me when, because after I killed, it was either Slade or Brad.
Yeah.
And it shocked me that both of them were like, no, you go. No, you go. No, you go. Well, Brad ended up losing, and he was up next. And it shocked me seeing just the nerves, and because he has been hunting so much. And I'm like, man, even a guy as grizzled as him, he still feels that. He still feels that passion enough to get nerves. And it's actually kind of a joy to see. Someone that has been doing it so long that still has that passion.
Yeah. Now, I mean, it's like, obviously I haven't done it nearly as much as Brad has, but I can tell you from my personal experiences, the nerves don't go away.
Yeah. And let's hope they don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of part of it, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, because that's what we were talking about. We were like, the day that, as I don't think it's physically, mentally possible for me to draw back on an elk and just be nonchalant about it. I don't think it's possible.
I don't see how it is either.
I mean, it's kind of part of it.
It is. It is.
So anyway, okay. First morning, we're headed out. There's some nerves there, obviously. Why wouldn't there be?
Yep.
So where we headed out, just kind of lay this out. The first morning is this is a stretch of mountains and a place that we've hunted a lot. This is the same place that you called at last year. If y'all haven't caught on to that already, same place in New Mexico, and we made a hunt and one. It's a hunt that we've made a lot, and basically what we do, like we talked about, we go out late in the morning. These elk are leaving the prairie, they're going back up the mountain, they bed down, and we have had so much success being able to call in and kill these elk once they're bedded down. Sometimes when they're traveling up too, but something about bedded elk, they
sneak in and get close.
Sneak in. It's almost like a territorial reaction when you start bugling or raking a tree, whatever. So anyhow, we get to the spot and we start working our way up a mountain. It was a little bit tricky, but precursor with the wind. I mean, you remember that first morning? Yeah. That first morning, I mean, we didn't make it a quarter mile up this mountain. And me and Brad and Slade are like, what is this wind doing?
Yeah.
Because one thing that we have been honestly spoiled on at this place is one of the main things that we love about this place is it typically has a very consistent wind. And and that's what the weather app was calling for. And it was doing that when we started hiking. But we don't – I'm serious, a quarter mile or less up the mountain, we're like, what's that wind doing? I feel it hitting me in the back of the neck, which is not what you want.
No.
Obviously. The weather was absolutely nuts on this trip.
That was a theme of the trip. I mean, the first 3 days, you had hail. You had, sleet, rain. The wind said it was going to do one thing. Like you said, we walk quarter mile, half mile. Next thing you know, it's behind us. And we're like, what are we doing here?
And had an elk bark at us.
Yeah.
Because we had seen, I can't remember if we saw something or heard a bugle, but we were making our way up towards where we thought an elk would be. We feel that wind switch, and it wasn't seconds later we hear elk go to barking. We're like, well, that one's done.
Yep.
And
we're in trouble now.
Yeah, and this is the first hunt. We're like, well, good start, Garrett.
Yep. Welcome to the show. You hit it during the peak last year. Now you're first.
Yeah.
Just different type of hunting for sure.
Yeah. Yep. And there's no doubt. Luckily, though, so that first morning did turn out to be eventful.
Oh, yeah.
We heard another bugle. The wind switched back kind of right, and this bull, if we're probably, I know we would have had to where this bull was. He was across the mountain and then across kind of a small canyon and then on the ridge on another side.
Yeah, and we almost came back down on him to get the wind, back where it needed to be to where he was bugling on us.
Mm-hmm. And we were kind of referring to Brad and Brad's wealth of knowledge over what we know. And just he had called to this bull some after we heard him bugle, and just by his responses, he was like, we can definitely make up some ground on this one.
Mm-hmm.
So we started, just kind of slowly hiking that direction, throwing a call out every now and then. Not cow calling, mind you. We were just bugling, and he would bugle back. And we get to a spot, and I think Brad saw him.
Yeah.
Yeah, glassed him across that ridge and was like, I think this is worth making a setup.
Mm-hmm.
And so you and I get set up. Brad and Slade drop back, and Justin drop back, start calling and everything. And then I can't remember how quick, but we found out real quick it was more than one bull because there was this.
Yeah. It was two smaller bulls at first. What we saw, one that he glassed, and but then someone heard a third, and that's when we were like, all right, well. First setup, let's give it a go.
Yeah.
Maybe they're bigger than what we think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when, Stone Cold Eyes came in with Slade and Braid.
Slade and Braid.
Slade and Brad. And they headed back and they went to work.
Yeah, they did. And then I remember this was probably that first morning encounter was probably other than when you got to shoot, that was probably the most fun I had hunting with you.
Yeah. Oh, man. Thank the Lord. So what happened? We set up, lakes behind me, and they're calling, and next thing you know, we can start seeing them. They're coming down that ridge through that little,
it's like
prairie,
a little meadow,
little meadow deal there, and they start coming up, and you saw the first one, and you told me, you were like, Garrett, just let this one, they're small. Don't even draw.
Yeah.
Like, let's just enjoy this moment, your first encounter this close.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they popped up. When they popped up to where we were 15 yards maybe.
Maybe.
And, I mean, that one ripped a bugle right in my face. and it was just spectacular.
That was, in my mind, what I was seeing. It wasn't that I'd like – it was like it was our first setup of the entire trip.
That's right.
If that would have been an old bull, I would have been like, get ready and shoot.
Yeah.
But we were fortunate when they crossed that little meadow. I saw a couple different things that told me that they were probably young before I even was able to see them up close. One, there was two. We knew there was three, and two of them were coming across together.
Yep.
That's indicator number one. Those mature bulls, typically, you're not going to see them running in packs like that.
Yeah.
Second thing is I think you could see them doing this too, just with our naked eye. They get to coming across that meadow and they start. It's like they're hopping and kicking around, and I mean,
just like little cows.
Exactly. It's almost like if you've whitetail hunted a lot, if you've been sitting in a food plot, sometimes you'll see a fawn. It's like it's almost like, you ever seen a dog get the zooms?
Exactly.
It kind of looks like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like we're calling, and these two bulls are coming. They start hopping and kicking around, and that is textbook young bull behavior.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these are probably going to be young.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at it as like best case scenario, because again, I had been in your shoes before.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I was filming, the difference between being behind a camera and being behind a bow is so vastly different.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're going to take this opportunity to let Garrett get somewhat of a, okay, this is what they look like when they come by at top pin and I'm holding the bow, because it's different.
It's different.
Yeah. And so they popped up and came. I mean, the footage is awesome. I mean, they walked right. I mean, had they been an older bull, you could have smoked one of them.
Yeah, they both walked right past us.
Yeah.
Until they got our wind, and then they kind of spooked a little bit on us.
Yeah, they kind of ran off. And then Brad heard, they were far enough back, and where we were, it was thick, so Brad couldn't see as good. He heard the elk running, and he didn't know if we had shot. He didn't know what happened. So he starts drifting back up to where he can see me, and we're kind of trying to communicate with one another, but still whispering, and all of a sudden that third bull rips a bugle, and we're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This one could be, we don't know if this one's young or not. And so that third one starts coming. The third one, I don't remember seeing him cross the meadow.
I saw, because he kind of came at a different angle.
Yeah, he angled off the ridge.
And then I saw him for maybe 3 seconds, one side of him.
Yeah.
And then he started raking below us for a while.
That was cool.
Yeah.
That was so I knew he was coming because I could hear his bugles, but I couldn't see him. Like Garrett was saying, he took a slightly different route. And then I started hearing something because basically if you're not, we're on 2 adjacent ridges. These elk are coming down a ridge, crossing a small meadow, then they have to come up the ridge that we're on to get to us. And I knew he was close because that bugle was loud.
Yeah, you can feel it.
Less than 100 yards.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm hearing something. Finally, it hits me. It was like, again, first hunt of the year, just knocking the rust off a little bit. I'm like, he's raking a tree. I know what that sound is.
Yeah.
And he did that for, I don't know, it seemed
20 minutes?
Seemed like it. You know how it is when you get in one of those situations.
Yeah.
It could have been 5. I know it felt like 20 minutes.
Enough where I had to stretch my legs out a couple times.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, he was down there, and you could hear him just thrashing this tree.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to lean down and signal to Brad my best sign language for elk raking tree, which I think he understood because he started raking a tree where
more
he
like
was.
You were in a rave at that point,
but but eventually he did break and come up there.
Yeah, he came up and right when he started cresting, because you were behind me, you were above me, you were saying, shoot her. I was like, okay. So then I see him, and again, rookie mistake number 1 for me, which I'm totally cool with. The minute you said shooter, I should have known you have eyes on him, so I should have drawn.
Mm-hmm.
So what he did is he came up, and then now I'm stuck. I'm not drawn. There's one set of trees, and then I have a gap, another set of trees, a gap. I said, okay, so once his head's behind that tree, I'm going to draw. He takes one step, his head's there. I draw, busted, looked right at me. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting there at draw, and what I came to find out later from you and Brad and Slade and everyone is it's still early enough where last time I saw this last year, that if that bull's committing the way he did, he's running past us.
Yeah.
But it's early season or earlier, the rut's not kicking. He's getting to that ridge, and he's going to be cautious.
He's looking
mm-hmm. before he commits. So he busts me at draw. Next thing you know, for me it felt like 5 minutes. It was probably 30 seconds. He just looking right at me.
Oh, he gave you a stare down for a while.
He right at me, and
he stood there long enough. Honestly, he stood there long enough that the thought crossed my mind. I'm like, he may give up on this. Like I was like, there's a chance, because I've seen him, not often, but I've seen them. Sometimes they catch something and then they just keep walking. But like you said, I think it was he wasn't lovesick enough to do that yet.
Yeah,
he's still too in tune.
Yep. So after that, I mean, we were at a standstill for a while, and he just turned around and went back. And next thing you know, he raked that tree for a little bit longer too, I think, afterwards.
He bugled again going away.
Yep. And at that point, we knew that we were, that was my first encounter.
That one was done.
Which, I mean, it was awesome.
Yeah.
But rookie mistake number one.
It's man.
I'll tell you what, you guys make this look so much easier than it is on camera.
It's not. And
it is not.
I've screwed up so many times. I think the only reason I've ever had any success elk hunting is because I've screwed up enough times to figure out the biggest advantage I had. I think when it comes to that is, for example, like let's take you last year. Mm-hmm. You were calling.
Yeah.
You're drop back.
Yeah.
You have an idea of the concept, the process, but you're not up there in the hot seat. So when I was younger doing this and I was filming, I was with a lot of shooters when elk got shot. And I remember because one of the first elk I ever filmed Brad shoot, actually, it turned into a joke because it was a similar deal. This elk was coming across this open, and Brad had one spot where he could draw back. And so I'm in the viewfinder, and I'm very new to elk hunting. I have no concept of how far this elk actually is. I think he was like 50 yards and facing us. But I just know I'm in the viewfinder, and in my peripheral vision, I see and hear Brad draw back, and I start freaking out. I'm like, no, I can't. The footage is not good. Wait. And it turned into Brad. After Brad told me, he was like, I was not planning to shoot the elk right there. That was the spot that I had to draw back. He was after that spot. He's going to be in the wide open. I wasn't going to have an opportunity, and so I learned that super early on. Brad told me, you draw back the first chance you get.
Absolutely,
because that's like the biggest movement you're going to have to make as a bow hunter is getting that bow drawn back. And like I said, I mean, rookie mistake, maybe. It's a learning experience.
Learning experience is probably a better way to put it. Because, I mean, I don't regret any of it. I mean, until I had that, experience, then I didn't know. Yeah. But looking back on it, it's like, all right, I saw his tips before I saw him.
Right.
And I could have had a good 2 seconds, which is more than enough time to draw.
Yeah. That's what even led me to, like, I've talked about it on here before. And I started, when I would be getting ready for elk season, I would practice holding my bow back.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I would build up to where I could hold it back for 2 minutes.
Yep. So I practiced that. I did not practice that enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I did practice it, but definitely not near as enough.
Yeah,
enough as it should be. I mean, because you're going to be holding.
Yeah, there's some situations where I've seen it happen where the elk's on a steady walk. You have it all depends. It's so dependent on the setup.
Yeah.
But like that one, case in point, that elk where as soon as he tops that ridge, you're in the open. I mean, we had cover, but open as far as like trying to get a bow drawn back. And
especially
so it's like
15 yards.
Right. And it was still the wind, it was fairly still. Even the wind, when it was swirling, it was fairly calm. You didn't have a lot of noise. So even the sound of the drawback was a risk that day. So the best shot you had at getting drawn back without getting caught was when you saw those antlers pop up. But learning experience.
Absolutely.
Those are mistakes you're supposed to make.
Yeah. For a first sit, I couldn't have asked for a better one.
Counting that bull, that was the third bull you'd ever had in bow range.
Yeah.
So,
learning. Absolutely.
What happened after that?
Well, that afternoon is the first bout of sleet that we ran into, wasn't it? Or is that thunderstorm day?
No. You're right. That was the hailstorm day.
Hailstorm day.
Hailstorm afternoon, I should call it.
Yeah.
And we got in 0 elk.
0 elk. 0 anything. Mm-hmm. Long, wet, cold afternoon. Mm-hmm. But fun. I mean, that's when that right there, that afternoon is why it is where memories are made, because you're not seeing anything, you're not hearing anything, you're all cold, you're wet, but you're still out there together, and you guys all have a great relationship. I mean, we all do now.
Yeah.
We did before I even went, but just the jokes, the camaraderie, that's where, this afternoons like that make these hunts memorable.
Well, that, and then another thing that I appreciated is I remember you telling me, it was some point in that first day, is you were like, man, this is way different than last year.
Yeah.
And then you said something, you were like, I don't know if I could call in these kind of conditions. I don't know if I would know. Because, and what that does two things. Again, it's learning. Mm-hmm. Two, it's like it makes you come to really appreciate those short, you maybe have, if I had to guess, I think you maybe have 2 to 3 days where they're just acting crazy like that.
Yeah.
Other than those 2 to 3 days, it's build up and then it's tail off. And you can absolutely call in and kill an elk in those other days. Absolutely, you can. But
it's just more calculated.
Yeah, that's why it's more cerebral.
Experience on learning how to talk to those bulls and figuring out what they're saying, what mood they're in, how you're going to get them to come to you or past that hunter. Whereas last year, toward the third hunt, I was fine calling because I was like, all right, I'll just cow call.
Let me just make an elk sound.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that bull, the same one, the drawback on bull. Mm-hmm. Do you remember what Brad did to get that one to finally come up?
Oh, well, he started raking, I think,
right?
And then he moved.
Exact. So him and Slade and Justin were all in one spot. Brad started tailing off, and this is what led. I remember it now. This is what led to that conversation. Brad tailed off from Slade and Justin, and he said my goal was to try to sound, because they had all been together calling, bugling, cow calling, raking, all that stuff. Brad leaves off. He's the same distance away from the bull, but he's moving, further side to side.
Yeah.
And he kind of tails off, and he said, I was trying to sound like a cow that had split off from that group of elk that we were sounding like.
To try and get him to come in and steal one.
And that's what made him do it.
Yeah.
That's what made him come and look. And that's when you said you were like, man, this is completely different. You didn't have to think into that much detail.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I said, I think the best word is just calculated and just getting that experience and actually going out there and doing it. You're not going to know that. It's all about just going and doing it.
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. My quote of the trip.
It's a favorite quote from you.
Yep.
It's true.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so don't be ashamed of that.
Yeah.
Ask the questions. I probably asked too many questions this trip, but I have fallen in love with it last year. And now this year, it's just ingrained in my heart and soul now. I just wanted to ask all the questions.
Right.
Like even Slade and Brad, I was like, all right, why'd you bugle like that?
Yeah.
Well, that was a locator. I wanted to sound like a JJ, like a junior.
Like a little junior bull.
Like a little junior bull.
Yeah.
And that's my little locator junior bull because we're in this bowl right now, right? And it's really died down, so I don't want to hit him hard right now.
Yeah.
Or it's not picking up. Toward the end of the hunts, it was, growling and getting after them because they started picking up.
Right.
So don't be afraid to ask questions, guys.
No. That's what especially when you get, Brad's been elk hunting 40 years. Slade's been doing it 20 years. It's like there's ample amounts of experience in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you have to ask those questions because, again, it's like one of those things like Brad, been doing it so long, like they'll just start just doing what's second nature to them, and it's like, hey, take a second, explain what you're doing to me here. I'm trying to learn.
That way, next time when you're doing that, I now know what you're doing, and I know what my job is.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so all of day one, Hailstorm. I remember some of this all runs together for me.
Let me see. I pulled up. I tracked all my hunts on Onyx.
Oh, look
so
at you.
why don't you talk a little bit, and I'll try and get over there and see what our morning hunt was for day 2.
I remember day 2. Did we go to the volcano, or did we go to the drain? I know both things happened before the day? Before,
so let's see.
Before the really good
Volcano was day 3 all day because that's an all-day hunt.
Okay, so day 2, we hit the drain?
Day 2 was the drain was afternoon.
Okay.
And then
you got all your
day 2 morning. You would know this ridge or this canyon better than me.
We went to Macklemore Canyon. Yep. So that is when Macklemore Canyon, we went in there and got on a single bull, if I remember right. That's the bull that we thought, okay.
On the way out.
So two things. No, on the way in that morning too.
Okay, yeah.
That's the bull that like was coming on a string, and I was telling you, he was like, Garrett, get ready, this guy's coming. And you remember he like just ran across that opening, then went back up the mountain.
Oh yeah.
We were like, what is?
That is right. Yeah. So yeah, we were up that drain and heard him. He was pretty far off.
Yeah.
And then so we walked maybe another 200-300 yards, and Slade bugled again, and he was close.
Yeah.
And then so we set up, and the boys bounced back, and I mean he kept coming. It would have been awesome because that little drain wasn't more than 40 yards across.
Yeah.
So it would have been great for a first timer only having to shoot out to 40.
You did have lesson number 2 in there too, because if you remember the bull was coming, and you turned around, and you looked at me, and you said, "How do I get drawn back early when he's in the open?"
That's right. That's right. And that's when you were like, all right, when they're in the open like this, the best thing to do is literally face them, draw back, because that way you're not showing, width.
Yeah.
You're drawing straight back, and then you're literally pointing your bow, and you're moving with him.
You're tracking him.
You're tracking him.
That and then shade. Shade. 10 times over shade.
Yeah.
Keeps you hidden.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like one of those things, like we were making our way towards this faint bugle, and all of a sudden he rips one. We're like, oh, gosh, bull, set up. And then the only thing – so what happens is, from Garrett and I's point of view, this bull's coming. The bugles are getting louder. They're getting more intense. And I'm like, we're going to see him any second. All of a sudden, I see this bull trot out into the open, probably 150 yards, and he never stops. He just like trots through and then goes right back up where he came from.
Supposed to make a right, kept going straight.
The only thing that we could figure is, one, again, they're not like, again, full on rutting yet.
Yeah.
And I think it was just open enough through there that he wanted to see more.
Yeah.
I think he wanted to see some cows or something.
Yeah.
And he just kind of like slowed down and looked and then just went back to
Do you think he might have had cows up there with him that we just didn't hear or see?
I do.
Yeah.
I do, because even if he wasn't like, fully rutting yet, I think if he was by himself, he would have investigated a little bit further.
Yeah.
But I think he just kind of did a quick pass and was like, meh, and then just went back. Because, again, I mean, you think about how large an elk is. Think about how quick he covered that ground.
Mm-hmm.
Like him going to see what's down there and then just go right back to his cows. That's like us going to the break room and seeing if the coffee's ready. I mean, it's just like pop in, pop back. He's like, It wasn't like a big effort for him to do that,
Yeah, it was weird, man. I was jacked up and he just kept going. But
yeah.
And then we didn't. That was one we didn't hear from him again.
Mm-mm. No,
Once he was out. He was out. No bugle. He didn't want nothing to do with whatever we were that he knew.
Then later on that morning's probably the most frustrated I got during the entire time you were hunting.
Yeah, we have different perspectives on that, but I understand your side. We have very different perspectives.
So since I've been here and since 4v2, we've been accused of a lot of things. We've been accused of hunting, like we've had guys say that you don't ever show the mistakes you make or whatever. Like I'm about to tell you, like we flubbed a situation real bad.
Really bad.
Real bad.
Yeah.
I think I'm piecing this together, but
so I'll start. How about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we're walking out, and we didn't hear anything else the rest of that morning.
And then hiked a pretty good bit. Like we covered pretty. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're coming back out, and we're in the middle of this meadow, and we had 2 or 3 drains come in, kind of in the center there, and we're stopping there. There's a bunch of trees in the center of this thing, so we're stopping there and talking about the hunt, and we're always testing calls. Mm-hmm. So the guys had calls with them. And they're playing with the calls, talking to us, what they like, what they don't like, what they would tweak, and then they're actually calling, making noises, and they're like, oh, you see how that stuck a little bit right there? And I was like, yeah, I heard that. So we might need to make this change. Well, if they're calling, and we're in the middle of this meadow, next thing you know, it lights up 3 ways to Sunday on us. I mean, we had 3 bulls bugling at us, and I'll let you take it from there.
So 2 of them were on this big steep mountain face, kind of like if we're facing east. The first ones were on the same steep mountain face, like directly south of us. One of them was opposite. He'd have been to the north of us, and I can't remember if it's the actual direction or not, but you'll get the idea.
Yeah.
So 2 of them, one direction, one of another direction, and they're not super close, but they're not like really far away either. So it put me like instantly in a predicament, and which is where I get frustrated with myself because I have a really bad habit of having a strong hunch that I need to do something, but then questioning whether or not I have the time to do it. So
to be fair, you even told me.
So I'm looking and I'm like, we don't need to be right here. Like where we are, like, because granted, we weren't trying to call an elk in where we were standing, but the situation arose. Like all of a sudden, we have elk answer us. What I think, at least for the 2 that were on that steep face, I think they just happened to pop over. I don't think they had been there all morning because we had essentially hiked past. The one that was on the other side up that drain, I don't know if he had been bedded in there or if he had just come through there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was like, this situation, this setup we're in, it sucks. It's so bad. And so I wrestled around with, like, I know this isn't going to work, but if I move, I'm afraid I'm going to spook them. And come to find out, I mean, who knows? I think we could have moved. I think if we would have just picked up our stuff immediately, jutted over, gotten back into the larger timber where we could move around, gotten into some shade because we didn't have much shade to work with there. Essentially what happened, one of the 2 that were on the steep face, you saw one of those.
Yeah, he was coming down.
Never made it down to the bottom. The one that was in the drainage bugled like a second or third time, I don't know, and then all of a sudden we turn around, I hear Slade go, oh no, and he's just standing there.
In the middle of the meadow.
Yeah. And
looking right at us.
Yeah. And needless to say, that didn't play out.
He was a good bull.
He was a good bull. And I was so mad. I was mad at everything. I was mad at me. Because I was like, we know better than to do that bull crap. Like that was terrible.
Everyone was pretty frustrated with that.
And I'm like, we're trying to get Garrett a bull. Like we're supposed to be helping him, and I was very frustrated.
Yeah,
because that was just a completely flubbed opportunity.
But you know what? You got to look at it. And I told the guys this too because after we finished the walkout, after the silent walkout from there on out, I told them, I was like, guys, I just saw something I didn't think I'd ever see. That situation where 2 were coming across, we had one coming down on me. Next thing you know, the other one came from behind us, and I looked back, and I'm like, now I know what a mature bull looks like.
That was a good bull.
And just be able to see. And then he just stood there, and he was just bugling at us.
Yeah. He was standing there like one of those. It was like I can tell because we were far enough away. Like he was probably 170,
maybe
170 yards away. And for those, if I had to guess, this is like obviously when I saw him, I was facing. I didn't try to move because I didn't want to. And I never put binoculars on him. But from 170 yards, I guess he was probably like a 330 type bull. I mean, he was big, good bull.
You would know better than me.
And then that's just a guess.
Yeah.
But like one you immediately look at and go,
I get it now.
Yeah.
But it was just, I hate to use the word majestic, but because that's such a weird word, but it really is. It's like those old magazines you see where you got this bull in a meadow just hollering, and you got that still frame photo of him.
Yeah.
It was like that, picturesque, I guess is the better word. He was standing there just, bugling, and I was just like, wow.
Yeah.
I understand why this is a dream for so many people.
Yeah.
And I was just standing there. I was like, I am so blessed right now to be able to have this opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, they're a respect-demanding animal.
Yeah.
You know, you just look at him, you're like, holy cow. You know, and like I said, too, one like that. I wish it hadn't been in that situation where the reason he was looking so intently is because we were far enough away, and he was like, what is that? I mean, he wasn't going to come any closer, but he was far enough away that he was trying to figure out what was going on. Eventually, obviously, he left, and then the slow walk out where everyone was frustrated. But
lesson learned.
Lesson learned. Lesson learned that some of us already knew and didn't need to learn again, but we did.
Well, I learned that one for sure that day.
Yeah. That afternoon, we hunted the big drainage.
Yeah. Talk about a cool spot. So we must preface this. We had plans to go elsewhere, but the wind shifted again and came in from the east.
Yeah.
And just hurt all of what we were planning to
do.
Yeah.
So, guys, like, I can't emphasize how much, not even just on Garrett's hunt, like, we fought the wind so much this trip.
Yeah.
I mean, it would switch so many different directions in a single morning.
Yeah.
I mean, you just didn't. At one point, you'd be like, what do we do? Like, it says that there's a predominant direction, but it's not. I mean, it's just going everywhere. What it was, I think, is like, we talked about the hailstorm. We had a couple more rainstorms move through. We just had these crazy weather systems moving through that was just making the wind do some wonky things.
Yeah, and because it wasn't like we were in bowls, right? Obviously, the wind's going to swirl in bowls. Like, a lot of the time where we were hunting, that's not where we were going to be or do. It's just the wind just shifted completely.
There was a morning or an afternoon, rather, I should say, that I was hunting, and Easton was from Raised Hunting was filming me. Brad was calling. And we eventually left where we were, and we're up on a top. Like, we're not in a bowl. We're up on a top working this, we're at the top. And we were like, we have to leave. We're not going to kill. All we're going to do is hurt, like, what we're trying to do, because the wind switched so many times.
Yeah.
And we're like, we got to just get out of here, because we're like never going to kill anything.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yeah, you guys have learned that, throughout the years.
So, but anyhow, the drainage. Super cool spot. Had you been in there before?
I've never. So, from what I hear, you guys went late last year
with David Holder,
with Mr. David, and I didn't go in there with you guys, but now I know what you guys were talking about. Yeah. Talk about a hunt, man.
Yeah, it's super cool. So I mean, like, if you were out there and you saw it, if you're looking out across the prairie, you really don't see much. Like, you can kind of tell, like, we'd keep referring to this drainage, you can kind of tell something's there, but it's wild. It's like a little hidden world down there.
It really is. And I mean, it just kept going deeper and deeper, and I was shocked with how much elk sign was in there.
Yeah.
But I guess it makes sense, right? I mean, if they're all out in the prairie, they want to get somewhere quick, shade, get out of the weather or anything.
The grass was a lot greener down there. You got that creek running through it. It's like a little bitty oasis that if you literally don't walk to it, you'd never know there was that much in there.
Yeah.
Because it's like, you look at it and you'd be like, what do you mean hunt the drain? There's like a ditch.
Yeah.
And then you walk out there and you walk to it, you're like, oh my God, there's like a whole, it's hard to explain without going there walking it, but it really is. It's like you walk there and you're like, I had no clue there's this much country down here.
I mean, it's what? I mean, what do you think it is at the widest? A couple 100 yards?
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, but then on either sides, I mean, in places on either sides, I mean, it is just sheer rock.
Yeah.
Like straight up and down rock.
So if this paints the picture a little bit better, last year, and then credit to David, because I until last year I had never hunted that before, and he had looked at it on Onyx and was convinced. He was hunting. He said, I want to try that spot. And again, me not being there, I was like, okay, but I'm like, we're gonna walk there, look in this ditch, and go, all right, let's go somewhere else. We walk there, and all of a sudden we get to where it drops off into the drainage. And if this gives a scale on how big it is, drops down into the drainage, I see these trees running down into the bottom, and there is a bull and like 8 cows, and he's pushing them around.
Yeah.
And we're 200 yards from them. And I'm like, there's a whole other world down here.
Yeah.
that you can't see.
Exactly.
Unless you go. But so, yeah, we go into that drain. We got on that one bull.
We got on one. Sounded like an old dragon, man. I mean, he was down. So you're in this big trench, but then there's even another ditch below it, and he was down in there, and we set up on him and started calling. But, he was bugling at us. You can tell he was bugling, laying down.
Yeah.
He didn't want nothing to do with us, so he kind of got up. But then we did call one, from the prairie.
From the prairie.
Came over that little ridge. And, I mean, when I say it was a straight drop-off, he stood right there at that drop-off and just looked. Yeah. And that was cool to see, too.
It was super cool. And that was really kind of where the drain hunt began and ended, was right there. Because one thing we learned is they're either in there or they're not. Like when we were in there with David, there was all kinds of elk in there. Mm-hmm. This time we actually we worked it a little bit further. Then we crossed the other side, climbed the rock face up, and what we realized is all the elk were just out in the prairie. They weren't in the drain at the time. We're like, all right, let's bail and go somewhere else. And I think that was kind of more or less the end of the day too.
Yeah, it was. By the time we got back, to where we were going, it was pretty late. So, and the wind, that was kind of according to you guys, really the only spot from where we were that we could hunt and not screw anything up.
Yeah.
So
yeah, day 3.
Let's see, day 3.
I don't remember. I don't remember if you shot on day 3 or day 4.
I shot on day 4.
Okay, so we got a whole nother day.
Yep, day 3, we were in. I don't know if you want me to say it.
Is that
we
the
were
volcano?
Up by the volcano.
Okay. All right, you're gonna have to take. I'm serious. That we were out there 2 weeks. And a lot of this runs together. So
I mean, ever since you showed me how to color code, I can't believe I didn't know that. I color coded all of my hunts and then a couple others.
Because I really don't remember. If you start talking about it, I'll probably remember. But I don't remember what happened on day 3. Other than I know we
got on them.
Yeah.
Right, because before that, where we were hunting, we were on them, but not on them, and then we found the herds. Day 3, we found the herds.
That's right.
But it was a long day of. We had one rookie mistake, number 2, learning experience, number 2. Mm-hmm. We had that one.
That's right.
Come in.
Yep.
And you set me up. You didn't set me up. I get to choose my own spot, and this is how I learned that from that situation. I set up. And they were calling to our left, and he was going to come in and go down this little path right in front of me. So I set up by a tree. I had everywhere to shoot from right in front of me to my left. Mm-hmm. He came in. He walked right.
Yeah.
He walked right, and then perfectly broadside. I didn't even see him.
You couldn't see him because of the branches. Yeah.
Branches right over my head. Mistake number 2 on that hunt. I should have saw those branches and got down.
Should have knelt down.
You should have knelt down.
Yeah.
But, I guess that was another one where he apparently came up, looked, and was like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
And just got right out of there.
Hindsight, I probably could have helped you a little bit more on that one, too.
Well, it was just one of those things where you did tell me, and you were up front the whole trip. You were like, hey, if you need to move.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until that one where I was like, all right, you got to get this out of your mind where just because the callers are here, that's where that bull's going to go. Mm-hmm. You got to just get that out of your mind. When you're ranging for spots, you got to range everywhere around you.
What I eventually started doing, because I've made the same mistakes, is the first thing I'll do is look and figure out my shooting lanes in where I think the elk is going to go. Mm-hmm. And after I get that locked in, I look at everywhere else.
Yeah.
Because more often than not, they'll kind of go the way that you think. More often than not. But they will throw you a curveball.
Yeah.
And when they do, if you're not ready for it, you're like, what do I do? Where I don't even know. I haven't ran, It's a whole thing. So, but yeah, again, lesson learned.
Yep. That was definitely a lesson learned. And you know what? We forgot about one big one. We forgot about where I did draw back. Do you remember that hunt? You've been on so many hunts this year.
I don't. When did you draw back?
It was in, I forget, Espia. We hunted that. they were coming down right at dusk.
Yep, I forgot. I forgot about that.
And that was another lesson learned deal. So, to be quite frank, we had 2 come in. Lake and I got out on this point of these trees, and I mean it was textbook. The first guy came in, and he skirted us. He was far off, and he skirted us.
You had no shot at that bull.
Had no shot at that bull. Then another one started coming in, and I'm on the left of this tree, and he starts coming down this draw, and then he goes to our right, like he's going to skirt the wood line.
Yeah.
So he skirted, and I got back around the tree, and he was facing me, and then I needed him to take 5 more steps maybe, and he was in my shooting lane, because where he was, I only saw that one side. He was behind the trees from where I was set up.
Yeah.
And then he turned again, and that's where. So I'm at full draw at this point because I learned about drawing. So I drawed early on this guy. So then I'm at full draw. Now I have to get back around the tree because he's going to start coming into the meadow. And that's where my stabilizer's getting hung up on everything. I'm leaning back. I hope that footage is out there because it's pretty funny to see.
I remember I've seen the footage because I had a second wide angle. It's not as – I remember you being like – you said something like that footage of me drawing back and trying to get my bow around is going to be pretty embarrassing or something like that. It's honestly not that bad.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you could tell that you're in a bit of a bind. But But it's not like you don't watch it and go, look at this rookie. Like, it's not that bad.
Well, it's not even that. I just thought it was funny because at one point I was literally like leaned back trying to get my stabilizer around this tree.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, I had a bush at 53 with where we're at. First hunt, we all talked about it. Anything over 40, 45, like, hey, let's just be careful here. And then there's another one at, what was it, like 38, something like that, that other bush. And I saw him more toward that 53 bush. So I had him at 50, 53. Looking back at the footage, he was probably closer to 40.
Yeah.
Right. So it was one of those things, but you and Brad were so great about that. You're like, listen, if you're not comfortable, don't shoot, man, because the last thing we want to do is wound something. So I don't regret it. A little bit of regrets that one, just a little bit. I was frustrated after that.
That was the first time I could tell that you had gotten frustrated.
Yeah.
But that's what we were like, dude. If you're not comfortable, don't shoot.
Yeah, but looking back, I am comfortable at that. It was
you just didn't know.
Didn't know, and it was just one of those things.
Yeah.
So, but
I had completely forgotten about that hunt.
Yeah, that's the one where I told you I was like because that was the same day as the Plone.
We were coming back. We were coming back. So that was day 3.
That was day 3. Okay. That was the end of day 3. Because they were all in the Plone, they were all herded up, and we're like, we can't do anything with these. Let's try and go. Get somewhere else.
So where we at? Where we hunt this area that we call, that we're referring to as the Plone, the volcano, all that. Typically, like just historically, because I've hunted that place for Primos has hunted that place for years, and so we know it pretty well. We've just been over there a lot. The Plone, Sand Lake, which kind of ties into the Plone, but that's typically where oftentimes we'll run into just these large herds of elk. Yeah. Which they are a lot of fun to hunt because you see a lot, normally from a distance. You hear a lot, cows, bugles, because when they seem to, when they get herded up like that, they're just more vocal with one another, and there's a lot of bulls competing with one another. But they can also be, especially if they're not fully kicking rutting yet, it can be very frustrating to hunt. Yeah. And so the way with what the wind was doing, we got lucky and caught in that one bull early that morning that just happened to be kind of hanging on the outskirts. Yeah. And then after that, it was just like you couldn't really do anything with them.
They were too big.
From
what you guys were saying.
There was just a big herd, and you could try to stalk something, but it was like
rookie don't need to be stalking.
Well, the other thing is, and as I'm just being honest, and like we knew we still had, like, this was day 3. They're not fully rutting yet. We had the rest of the however long the season was. I think we had at least like 11 more days if we needed them. Yeah. Like, let's not push this. we just didn't want to push it. So we were like, we'll wait for him to get going before we try to just blow into this herd.
And it's why push it if that place has been so good in the past? You know, there's no reason. And when it comes to the public land, we were talking about that a little bit, off camera and everything. And I thought it was brought up was pretty cool. It's like, some of these public land's great. That's what, I hunt, down here in Mississippi. You hunt everywhere. Everyone hunts it. I think it's wonderful. But this place is one amazing. And what I heard I found very interesting. It's somewhere where you see elk really, truly beat elk because that's all they know. They don't know, orange vest coming in everywhere and getting all that pressure.
So it's like
it's an interesting conversation, isn't it?
This is the way I frame it up because and I don't typically like it's not something I just throw around out there because it's like you hunt public land, great. I hunt public land too. I do it every year.
Yeah.
I've hunted ever since I was a kid. However, when I was a kid, no one seemed to care if you were on public or private. It's a conversation now,
Yeah.
But the thing is, to me, like I was saying, is it's you hunt on a piece of private land like we're on. Mm-hmm. Take that volcano, for instance. This is like that volcano area that we refer to as Pelone. That's one of my favorite places on this entire planet.
Yeah.
That place is an old volcano with some other mountains around it. There's no roads other than like a little 2-track that's just kind of been beaten down from, the cattle farmer driving through there when they do run cattle there some. But that place, that old volcano and the mountains around it, has been like that. The only thing that's changed is through succession, through natural succession. There's been a herd of elk there since probably before any of us was alive, before however many years.
Yeah.
And so is it probably going to be easier to call in and kill an elk there than it is on public land? Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Sure.
Yep.
But you go hunt a place like that, you're getting to hunt an elk in a place where they naturally have been for years and doing what they naturally do. And so my argument, if someone presses me on this, is it's like, is killing a bull on public land harder? Yeah, again, probably yes. Why are they harder? Because they see a lot of people.
Yeah.
They're harder because they see a lot of pressure. Mm-hmm. The elk out here, they're doing what they naturally do. So my question is, what's the more wild animal? In the basis of what wild animal means.
That's great. Sound off in the comments.
You know what I'm saying?
I love it. It's such an interesting conversation, especially in today's politics, if you can say, or in the world, in the hunting industry.
Yeah. So it's like I'm not knocking the public land guys for a second, but it's like don't knock what we're doing either.
No, after this year, I'm looking for all I can do for next year. I'm looking at it all.
Yeah. It's just it's a very special place to be able to go.
Yeah.
And I'm fully aware of that. I think you are as well.
Oh yeah. Listen, it's just unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal. It's just all you can say.
So, day 3, down the Pelone with the huge herd.
Yep.
Travel back that afternoon. Try to catch some elk come out of the prairie. Draw back. Got close. Didn't feel comfortable.
Now I'm frustrated.
You were frustrated.
Yep.
This leads us into day 4.
Day 4. Another early day.
Garrett, take the wheel.
Take the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Lookout Canyon is what we call it, right? Mm-hmm. And we were going up in, and we were hunting we weren't hunting the canyon. We were hunting a ridge on one side of the canyon.
Yeah.
And, I don't know what drove us there. Probably everything, wind, weather, just experience. One, haven't touched it yet, probably. Yeah. So we get up there and get all the way pretty much to the top, would you say?
Yeah, yeah.
And Slade probably let out on his big papa. Yeah. And next thing you know, we hear one. And wait a couple minutes because we're in a really nice spot, really pretty spot, great setup. Wait a couple minutes. Next thing you know, he hits it again, and he's closer. Yeah. So now it's go time.
Yeah, it was a move to this one to find a place to set up.
Yep, absolutely. So they drop back. Nice bulls coming in. There was one lane. We're in some thick stuff. One lane, 30-yard shot max. We needed him to come in, and then there was another lane that runs kind of catty corner away from us. So he comes in behind all the trees. I'm drawn. And next thing you know, he comes in the opening. And this is where I started feeling more confident because of the night before and the 2 days before that. I moved.
You did.
While that elk was coming in.
Yep.
Because I knew, all right, he's not going to come where I need him to be. He's going to be focused on those collars. I moved, so at least I had it shot at that trail running away from us. So he came in, and I didn't stop him. Actually, you stopped him just because he was coming in so fast. And when he stopped about 20, 25 yards, but behind a bush.
Yeah.
And perfect broadside. And I'm like, I'm not taking that shot.
The other thing behind, like the thing that's, I think, important is not just a bush. He was behind an oak brush.
Oak brush,
and if you're familiar with oak brush, you ain't getting an arrow through there.
Fair enough. Thank you for referring to that. Yeah.
So where we were is, like you were saying, is thick stuff.
Yeah.
Personally, like on that whole place, that kind of stuff that we were hunting in is my favorite.
I can see why.
It's absolute chaos.
Yeah.
But it's fun.
It's risk reward.
It's a high risk, high reward, and what I mean by that is, and this elk particular case in point, is you get it. You essentially get to a spot where you're like, this is the best opening that we have because everything's so tight in there, and so an elk choosing to take the slightest different veer in his path to you can be the difference in you getting a shot or not.
Yep.
Because when that elk was coming in, before you even had to move, he was like 27 yards from you, but behind a wall of stuff.
Yeah.
And again, it's absolute chaos in that kind of stuff. But you end up either top pin shot and it's intense and it's awesome because you have this 1,500-pound bull bugling right on top of you. But then you're like, he's just on the other side of that bush and I can't shoot him, which is what happened then.
Yeah, yeah. So he stopped, and I was like, I can't take that shot. I'm not going to take that shot. And then he kind of jogged off a little bit down that trail, and he stopped again. And he couldn't have been more than 40 yards, but he was quartering away hard. Mm-hmm. And I even whispered to you, I was like, you think I got that shot? And you said, this is on you, brother, or something like that. Like, you got to make your choice because what you're seeing and what I'm seeing aren't the same things. Yeah. We're 10, 15 feet apart at this time.
That's why I said that. I was like, to me, it looks like he's facing really hard away, but I don't know what you got.
Yep.
Like, I don't.
And he was. So.
And you didn't shoot.
I didn't shoot. I let down. And then, you guys came in, and at that point, after last night, and the hunting's been hard, I called Brad over, and I was like, this is where he stopped first, behind there. This is where he stopped second, facing that way. I didn't shoot. And you and him both were like, thank you for not making that shot.
Yeah.
You were like, if you would have made that shot, we would have been here all day, and that elk probably would have been wounded.
Yeah.
At which,
you don't want to do
it was
that.
Pretty hard not to make that shot. But, like you said, we are on private land. There is opportunity here. Mm-hmm. Let's not make a bad shot. Let's do the right thing.
Right.
It wasn't 10 minutes later.
Yeah, we're still standing there talking about it. Yeah.
Yep. Another one's coming in. Same place. So we get going again, and he comes in, and I get drawn, and he's 70 yards away, and he's one of those bulls where he came in looking.
Yeah.
He saw that opening that we were in. He was in that right little patch that we needed him to be in, but he got at the end of that thing and just looked at you and I.
Yeah.
And was like, he didn't see us. But he was like, I don't see no cats.
He was looking
here.
Where a cat.
He was like, there ain't nothing here because I know that drops off right behind you guys.
Yeah.
So he eventually goes away, and then again we're standing there talking. Maybe 20 minutes after that, just kind of what are we gonna do? Where are we gonna go?
And I think Slade called is what happened with this one.
I think he hit our bugle and next thing you know, another one's roaring
below us. So what we were doing is why it sounded like three bulls coming through this one spot. Is you had heard us refer to sometimes we get up these mountains in the morning, we catch them coming out of the prairie, coming back up to bed, and we were kind of close to the top, and these bulls are just filtering through, trying to find a way to go bed. And we had so far we'd called one of them in the top pin range and the second one, and then one bugle's below us, and we're like, he's coming up, and we're above him.
Yep.
This is good.
Yeah. this is good.
Yeah.
This is good.
This is good stuff.
So, but this time, so it's a totally different direction, but the wind's still in our favor. So they get on the other side of us. And now he's coming up where that first bull was walking down. This bull was going to have to come up and go the opposite way through it. And that's exactly what he did. And I saw one side of him, and I was like, yep, I like him. I drew, or actually I see him running up, and all I'm seeing is the size of this animal. And I saw one side of his rack, and he cut into where that first bull came out just a little before it, and I was like, golly, he's gonna skirt us again on the other side of that thick stuff. And I was like, all right, well, I'm just gonna draw. He comes back out and starts running back up that path again, and then he hits our opening. I stop him, and I pull back, and that arrow went.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just, for whatever reason, I think it was all the encounters before, I felt calm. It wasn't until after I released that arrow that adrenaline dumped on me. And when it dumped. Yeah. But I was expecting, like my first couple, I was shaky and everything like that. But for whatever reason in that spot, and I don't know what it was, but I felt calm and I felt great about everything. And, I stopped them and I just settled and I pulled and released.
You made a perfect shot.
And as Lake said, thumped them.
Yeah, you
thumped them.
You turned around and looked at me. I said, you thumped him. I don't know what you're looking at me for.
Yeah. So what this bull was is we've seen him in the prairie, and this is an old bruiser bull. He had half a rack.
It broke off. Yeah,
broke off one side. Half of the rack was broke off on one side. The other side was even more broke off, and it had we don't know what it was, but just kind of like cuts running up the inside.
Yeah, they were like cracked.
They were cracked and everything, but just an old bruiser, and I mean, trophy, man.
Well, what was odd about the antlers is it's like, had we killed that bull 7 days from when we killed him, we'd be like, oh, he'd been fighting.
Yeah.
But just the behavior that we had seen, which, I mean, there's still a chance of that, obviously, especially like every bull's got a different personality.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, we'd seen that bull. He walked like an old bull.
Yeah.
And so he may have been fighting. He just might have been an ornery old man for all we know.
Yeah.
But it was just like we hadn't seen, because a lot of different things happened that morning. You're talking about elk running in and all that stuff. Every other bull that you've heard us describe prior to this morning, the ones that have come in, they kind of come in tentative. They're looking. And you remember, even before you killed, like after that first encounter, Brad walks up and Brad's like, can you feel the difference in this morning?
Yeah.
Like the way they're answering, the intensity of the bugles, how they're coming in, they're focusing on the caller. I mean, things had started to change. It had started to pick up.
It was crazy overnight.
That's why. You remember I told you that, like, because I had seen it. It's not like there's a slow build up. It's just like kind of rut, pre-rut. They're thinking about it.
Boom.
Yeah, they're there, and yeah, that bull came in, and I got you. I remember you asking me further down. You're like, "Can you see him?" And I was like, "I don't know if he's a shooter or not. All I can see is his legs." Yeah. And I didn't see the broken antlers until like seconds before, and then it was all just happening so quick. It's like, I'm just gonna film.
Yeah.
Let him do what he wants to do, and thump.
Yeah. Well, that feeling. Even with my antelope hunt earlier this year, I killed on the first day.
Yeah.
That feeling you get where it's mature enough, obviously legal laws, you got to follow that, but even if it's not, the typical elk that are killed out there, you got that feeling where it's like, yes.
Yeah. I
want this one, or this one is doing exactly how I want my hunt to portray. That's the feeling I had. And even if you did tell me, hey, that's the broken one, I probably wouldn't have heard it.
Yeah. So I tried, the first year I had a tag, I tried to shoot a bull that was, all he had were his fronts. He was broken off at the. I mean, like you couldn't even.
Yeah.
Like he came in bugling and he had both of his beams were broken off. He just had fronts. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Troy told me no.
Yeah.
And Troy was filming me. He told me no, and then like after I'm like, oh, he has no antlers. Like
yeah.
he just said so. I mean, like I get it, man. And it was. I mean. He came in bugling. He came to the call. He was old. I mean, he was 100% an old bull. You remember how worn down his teeth were?
Oh, yeah.
Like, he was old.
Yeah. I could tell he was old. Like I said, I didn't know he was the broken one until after I shot. All I know is that in that situation, like you told me before, if you don't hear anything from me, you have a green light.
Yeah.
It's when you hear no.
Yeah,
you take your thumb off the release.
I wasn't telling you no on that.
No, you weren't. So I didn't hear no. I stopped him, and it's like I just told you, it was just an epic hunt. I mean, just so blessed to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Oh man,
something
I'm never gonna forget.
You made a perfect shot. I mean, it was right in the crease, upper third of the lung. I mean, perfect.
I mean, I think you went 100 yards,
and I think part of that's because
150.
He ran. First, he ran the direction he was already going, and then he curved around and started running back downhill.
Yeah,
I think the downhillness of it helped his distance some because they typically don't even go that far. When you hit them kind of high lung like that, they just. But I think the momentum.
Well, that and he almost took out Brad and Justin again.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. That footage is pretty wild.
Yeah.
They ran right past them.
Yeah, he almost took him out.
Yeah,
but just an epic hunt, man. I am so grateful for everything.
Yeah.
And then the best part of that is, after we were done with mine, I got to be a caller.
Yeah, and you liked that.
Oh, man. I love calling.
No pressure, just
no pressure, but still some pressure. Like, it's a game. Like, you're going to war with these things. I'm going to get you to come past this guy.
Tell me, I'm going to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
What was it like? Because I could tell, I mean, I didn't say when we found the bull. I didn't say a word to you. I was just following you with the camera because I that's like, especially being your first elk. Like I wanted you to fully have that moment. Mm-hmm. What was? I mean, you'd walked up to elk before, but what was that like? Yeah,
just emotional.
Yeah,
for me. I mean, elk has been just. I'm sure, like most guys, bucket list. Probably top of the bucket list.
Yeah.
Watched all the videos, read all about it. Just, it's emotional.
And,
just being blessed enough to have that opportunity and then capitalize on it. It's just, words can't describe it. Words can't describe it, man. Just, I think I, walked up and thanked the Lord and
you did.
Said a little prayer to my baby girl up there. But, besides that, just sheer joy and happiness and thankfulness for that animal. Mm-hmm. One, for the meat, obviously, but two, just the rush. Let's be honest. Like the pursuit, the rush, man. It's unreal. Mm-hmm. And I hope that everyone gets to feel that way.
Yeah.
At least once.
It's something else.
Oh,
it's
man.
absolutely something else.
It is. What did you think?
I think I've been from doing what I did at Primos for all those years, and fortunately, even though, being with Onyx and still getting to do some of it now.
Yeah.
I've gotten to go with a lot of first-time hunters.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of first-time bow hunters, for elk at least.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm not just blowing smoke. Like I could tell, I've been with guys that I'm talking on hunt number 1 of the elk trip that I'm like, they did not prepare. They can say whatever they want. I can tell, and mistakes can happen to people even if they do prepare, obviously, right? But you can just tell. You can tell by the way they're moving. You can tell you can watch them holding their bow. It's like you can tell like a level of comfort there. I can tell with guys when they're overly nervous, which again I get the nerves. I understand that. It's just some people I don't know why. It's just some people handle it better than others. If you remember, after the first morning, after that first encounter that we talked about, I told you, I said, I have high confidence in you.
Yeah.
I could tell that you had practiced. I could tell it probably helped that you had, seen some elk before.
Yep. Absolutely.
But I was like, I'm not nervous because I'm telling you, I filmed some people that I was like, I don't know how this is going to go,
Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, a lot of that credit is you guys and always answering my questions, and I'm fortunate enough to work where I work and hear the stories, and it's all about taking that knowledge in and processing it and putting their mistakes, not, learning from other people's mistakes and not just blowing by that stuff, if that makes any sense.
No, it does.
All right, so I'm not going to lie. I've visualized a couple hunts, prior to going out there,
Sure,
what I'm going to do and stuff like that. I still screwed up, which is fine.
Yeah.
But, just watching videos and listening to you guys and taking all that knowledge, it's a big part of it. And that's what helped, I guess, my nerves, like I said.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, having you behind me, right, is also, you're there for a job, you're filming, but having someone with experience literally 5 feet away from you, if you have that opportunity, take that.
Yeah.
Because that's huge.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's where, the only reason I know anything is for one, it's like nothing beats experience, right?
Yeah.
And so I've gotten to do it a lot, and then the people that have taught me how to do this are Brad, Will, Slade.
Yeah.
Come on.
Exactly.
Exactly. I don't know anything that they didn't teach me.
Yeah.
And it's obviously I'm very thankful for that, and I'm not. We still screw up, even though
You're not bow hunting if you don't.
Yeah. Heck, I missed one this year when I had my chance, It's just bummer.
Well, I wasn't going to bring that up.
It happens.
Yeah, it does.
I'm not happy that it happened. A bull, it's a whole other story, but the bull came in quick. I didn't check my shooting lanes enough, and that little limb, when I shot, my fletching hit this small limb and kicked the arrow up, and over it went. Yeah. Trust me, I'm still very capable of screwing up. So is Brad.
So is everyone.
You say.
So is everyone.
Yeah, but it's elk hunting is such a rewarding thing to do, especially when you get. Just getting to spend time where those elk live, getting to see them when they're rutting, getting the privilege, and I count it a privilege to be able to watch them doing what they naturally do. It's just.
I know now why it's so revered. Mm-hmm. I know now. Last year I knew why it was revered. I know now why it's on that pedestal.
Yeah.
It
deserves to be there.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Look, one of the two real game that you can still call, that's generally how you bring them in if you're archery hunting, right?
Yeah.
Turkeys obviously, and then elk is one of the last few that you can still do that with.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for everything you did for me out there.
No, man. It's if there's anyone that deserved to have the opportunity, you deserve the shot.
Oh, you're making me blush now. You're making me blush. Good thing this isn't a video podcast.
Be all red in the cheeks, boy. All right. Well, I think we did this one justice. I didn't want it to be a short episode. I think we covered this one well.
Yeah. Hopefully they stuck around with us.
I hope so. This one's going to be, unless you're on a long drive, there's going to be a couple drives to work to cover all of it, but that's all right. I don't like to leave any stone unturned. I think we'll wrap this one up. Garrett, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me, and again, thank you for everything you did out there for me. Trip of a lifetime. Glad I got to share it with everyone, the ups and the downs. It's all a part of it. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk here today with you.
Absolutely, man. We'll have to do it again. And guys, as always, hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. Hope you enjoyed the story. Obviously, if you have any questions, feel free to DM or hit up the Primos page or my personal page. We'll see y'all back here next time. Thank you as always for listening to the Speak the Language podcast.